The echoes of Hollowbrook Asylum. In the small town of Ridgewood, nestled between rolling hills and dense woods, lay the abandoned Hollowbrook Asylum. It had been closed for nearly 50 years, but its shadow still loomed large over the town. The building, with its crumbling brick walls and shattered windows, stood as a grim reminder of the horrors that once unfolded within its walls. For years, locals whispered about the asylum, sharing tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie sounds that echoed through its decaying corridors. Yet no one dared to venture inside. That was until a group of 4 college students, intrigued by the asylum's dark history, decided to explore the abandoned building for a documentary project. Emily, the ambitious leader with a keen interest in the paranormal, Jack, the skeptical yet curious tech expert, Sarah, the sensitive and intuitive empath, and Mike, the brave and adventurous cameraman, gathered their equipment and set out on a cold, foggy evening. As they approached the asylum, the air grew thick with an unnatural chill. The iron gates, rusted and creaking, seemed to groan in protest as they pushed them open. Emily shivered, not just from the cold, but from the palpable sense of dread that hung in the air. The group exchanged uneasy glances but pressed on, their determination outweighing their fear. Inside, the asylum was a labyrinth of darkness and decay. The faint glow of their flashlights revealed peeling wallpaper, rotting wooden floors, and graffiti-covered walls. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic like old blood. Emily took a deep breath and led the way, her heart pounding in her chest. "Let's start in the main hall," she suggested, her voice echoing eerily through the empty building. "We can get some establishing shots and then explore the different wings." Jack nodded, adjusting the settings on his camera. "I've set up the EMF detector and the thermal camera. If there's anything here, we'll catch it." As they walked through the main hall, the sense of unease grew stronger. The walls seemed to close in on them, and the silence was almost deafening. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall, causing them all to jump. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Probably just an animal," Mike replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Let's keep moving." They made their way to the east wing, where the patients' rooms were located. The doors, hanging off their hinges, creaked ominously as they passed. Emily stopped in front of one room, her flashlight revealing a faded nameplate. Room 213. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is where Dr. Whitaker conducted his experiments." Dr. Whitaker had been the chief psychiatrist at Hollowbrook Asylum, known for his controversial and often brutal methods of treatment. Rumors of unethical experiments and patient abuse had circulated for years before the asylum was finally shut down. Emily had read extensively about him, and she felt a morbid fascination with the man and his methods. As they entered room 213, a cold draft brushed past them, sending shivers down their spines. The room was small, with a rusted bed frame and a broken chair. The walls were covered in scratch marks, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to the floor. There, etched into the wooden boards, were the words, "Help me." Sarah gasped, clutching her chest. "I can feel it, the pain, the fear. It's overwhelming." Emily's heart raced as she set up the camera. "This is incredible. We need to document everything." As they continued to explore the east wing, the temperature dropped noticeably. Their breath formed white puffs in the air, and an eerie stillness settled over them. The further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. In the distance, they heard faint whispers, like the soft murmurs of the damned. Sarah clutched Emily's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "We need to leave. There's something here, something dark." Emily shook her head, her curiosity getting the better of her. "We can't leave now. We're so close." Reluctantly, Sarah followed, her every nerve on edge. They reached the end of the corridor and found a staircase leading to the basement. The stairs were steep and narrow, and the air grew colder with each step they took. At the bottom, they found themselves in a dimly lit hallway, the walls lined with old rusted pipes. "This must be where they kept the most dangerous patients," Jack said, his voice barely a whisper. As they ventured deeper into the basement, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They could hear fragments of conversations, cries for help, and the sound of someone sobbing. The sense of dread was almost unbearable, but Emily pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. They entered a large room, the walls covered in strange symbols and diagrams. In the center of the room was an old wooden table, stained with dark, dried blood. Chains and restraints hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. "This is where he did it," Emily said, her voice trembling. "This is where Dr. Whitaker conducted his experiments." As they set up their equipment, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Sarah clutched her head, tears streaming down her face. "We need to leave now. They're angry. They're in pain." Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. Their flashlights flickered and died, leaving them in pitch blackness. Panic set in as they fumbled to turn them back on, but the batteries were drained. In the darkness, they heard a low, guttural growl, followed by the sound of chains rattling. Emily's heart raced as she tried to stay calm. "Stay together. We need to find a way out." But it was too late. The darkness seemed to come alive, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. They could feel something cold and clammy brushing against their skin, and the whispers turned into screams. Jack was the first to go. One moment he was there, the next he was gone, dragged into the darkness by unseen hands. His screams echoed through the basement, chilling them to the bone. "We need to move!" Mike shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand. They stumbled through the darkness, the whispers and screams growing louder, more frantic. Emily felt a cold hand grasp her ankle, pulling her down. She screamed, kicking and thrashing, but the grip was too strong. She was dragged across the floor, the cold seeping into her bones. "Help me!" she cried, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of screams. Mike and Sarah tried to pull her free, but the darkness was relentless. It pulled and tugged, dragging her further away. In a desperate bid to save her, Mike swung his flashlight like a weapon, striking at the darkness. For a brief moment, the grip loosened, and Emily managed to break free. They ran, their hearts pounding, the darkness close on their heels. They could hear Jack's screams, now distant and haunting. The whispers turned into mocking laughter, echoing through the halls. Finally, they burst through the basement door and into the main hall. The light from outside was a beacon of hope, and they ran towards it, their breaths ragged and their bodies trembling. As they stumbled out of the asylum, the iron gates slammed shut behind them with a deafening crash. They collapsed on the ground, gasping for air, the weight of their experience pressing down on them. Emily looked back at the asylum, its dark silhouette looming against the night sky. The whispers had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. She knew they had barely escaped with their lives, but the horrors of Hollowbrook Asylum would haunt them forever. In the days that followed, the group tried to move on, but the experience had left deep scars. Jack was never found, and the town of Ridgewood remained eerily silent about the incident. The asylum, now more than ever, stood as a grim reminder of the darkness that lurked within. Emily never spoke of what happened in the basement, but the terror in her eyes told the story. She knew that some places were better left undisturbed, and some truths were too horrifying to uncover. Hollowbrook Asylum was one such place, where the echoes of the past would forever haunt those who dared to enter.